Hello. Alright guys, this is the Oklahoma Homesteader Rendezvous. This is my welding booth here. So if you're in or near Mcallister, Oklahoma, we'll be here today and all day tomorrow doing some welding demonstration. I've got out here, I've got some tubing and some panels on top of my little trailer that I'm going to be building a couple gates for a fencing job that I have. And in between, if you'd like to come out and try to weld, I can fit you in for 15 to 20 minutes or longer, depending on how busy we are. But we can get you in here, get you to run a bead, and trust me, if you've never welded before, it's not that crazy. 9 out of 10 people will get it within 20 minutes, good enough to start tinkering on their own. And I can explain a couple of key things that you'll need to know while we're in here. Hello, Angelica. It's all right. I mean, stuff comes up, stuff happens. It's a miracle we made it. Yesterday on the way down here, this latch right here on my trailer, has never done it before, somehow vibrated open and my gas bottle fell out. This is kind of crazy. So this cart fell out on the turnpike. This bottle fell out. As you can see, it shot across the turnpike. Kind of crazy chain of events. It's a miracle nobody was hurt. Never had that happen before. So from now on, we'll be redundantly locking that latch with a pin or some wire. What I'm fixing to do is I'm fixing to get this camera set up right here, and I'm going to start bringing in some metal and start welding. So hang with me if you want to see some metal cutting and some welding going on. Hey, I need to, just in case you're in here, I don't know how to, oh. Yeah, I'm going to make you a moderator. Angelica. Hello, Jan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up. You guys are fixing to start watching some welding. If I can get this to stick somewhere. I don't know how I'm going to be in a vertical live. I don't know how the Can you see the welding table? There we go. I can't see my phone. You can see the vise, right? I'm gonna start toting some metal in here. watch it, hang tight. I've got to get some tubing in here, start building a gate, and if somebody shows up and they're brave enough, they'll be in here welding. Heck yeah, we got 32 people in here. Double tap the screen to like it. What I'm going to be making is a 10-foot goat and sheep gate. So I've got to cut a few things. Normally I have an evolution circular saw for cutting off metal, but I forgot that, so we'll be using an angle grinder to cut off metal. Maybe I prematurely started this live because now I can't find a simple tape measure. You know, I'm not sponsored by Harbor Freight, but I have some DeWalt cutoff wheels, and I really don't like them. So my preferred ones are these Hercules Harbor Freight cut-off ones. Although they ought to sponsor me, because last time I did one of these things, I had 40 people coming to weld to the Harbor Freight boat. Smells like something melting in here, but it's not me. I haven't even burnt anything yet. Shayla, did you find me a picture? I'm gonna have to go look for a tape measure. I'll be right back. Let's use my truck. Shayla. Piece of truck, man. We're on this thing, boy. I'm sitting right here. Okay, if y'all are still here, you're persistent. Let's see how many people are willing to wait. Oh, hey, we still got 22 people in here. Double tap the screen to like it. Alright, so one thing you want to consider whenever you're buying material to make gates is your drops. The last couple I built were 5-foot tall panels, so I just made my gates 10 foot by 5 foot because they were 20-foot sticks cut in half so that I could load them. But what I'm going to do is, since it's 4-foot panel, I'm going to make it 4 foot and a half so the gates aren't too ridiculously tall. So all you really need, like I said, is an angle grinder and a welder and a square, 1/8 square. We're going to cut this off at 4.5 foot. Mark striped on there. I don't know, I just bought a pack of pins afterwards, that's where I was. Stripe it on all 4 sides so that you can keep this cut square. Probably be a good role model for my safety glasses. When you're cutting stuff off with cut-off hooks, you want to do it kind of slow so you can kick back and prematurely wear your blades out. Last one, you're going to want to pinch your blade. You're going to want to support it. This is where another hand comes in. useful. Or a bigger table, like a runoff table. Fairly square. Sometimes I want everything to come out square. I'll take the last drop and use it for my measurement, so I can try to get everything the same length, because you may take off a little more than you measured or a little less. Basically just square it up at the other end. Make sure it's flush. Scribe your first mark on there. Once you got your first mark, you're good. Mark ought to come out just in line with the first three, where your line's got a little bit out of square. See how many people we got. We got 12. Ain't too bad. Alright, so as you can see, pretty daggone same length. Pretty much. Let's see, what do they come say? Yeah, smoking, vaping, permitted in designated areas only. I was kind of worried about the fire alarm right there, but we'll see if we set it off. I don't know. So now those are going to be the ends to my gate. Now these pieces should already be 10 foot. I didn't cut them. The metal supplier did. But my table's not really big enough to keep everything square, so I'll be working on the ground right here. But basically what I'm going to do is take these 2 end pieces, fit them in there, and then go back with the square and square up each corner, tack it, move to the next corner, square it, tack it, all the way around, and then flip the whole piece over and do the same thing, make sure everything stays square, and then I can put some permanent welds on it. You'll see it. If you stick around long enough, you'll see the process. Let me see if I can get you mounted back up here. That should be, let me see something there. Yeah. That should be pretty close. If not, we'll always say it should have been. Maybe I could pull it up with my other phone real quick. Can you look at that and see if it's actually where it needs to be? Wow. I guess I could turn the camera around, but the other camera's not as good. Let me try turning the camera around and see. That should be sufficient. It is a Google Pixel. It's not as impressive as I thought it would be. What? I was afraid the camera footage wouldn't be so good with it being the rear facing camera. There's not a lot of people here today yet. I'm sure in the afternoon when people start getting out of school and stuff, they'll start venturing out. Now this is 1.5 inch square tubing. My gate entryway is 20 foot 9 inches. I could put these on the outside and make these 10 foot 3 inch gates. That would only give us 3 inches to work with our hinges and our gap in between the gates. I don't think I'm going to do that. If I'd have went a full foot, that would have been ideal. So we're gonna mount them on the inside instead of the outside of the long pieces. I barely got enough room to do this. Barely. Alright. This is where the square comes in real important. You know, it's a lot better floor than I'm used to working off of. My floor is all warped and cattywampus. So it's ought to turn out pretty nice. I'm going to set it for 12 gauge wire, see how it runs. Sometimes I turn it up, sometimes I turn it down. Don't forget your ground clamp. I'm gonna change this. Sometimes them nozzles get kind of built up and they'll drop little bits of slag in the middle of your weld and just ruin everything you got going on. I don't typically use this nozzle gel too often. Sometimes I start with it and I just never really think to reapply it, but I thought to bring it out here so people who are beginners to welding don't have to fight the splatter falling back in the weld, wondering why their weld's popping. When it happens to me, I know what's happening. Typically, what I'm welding on doesn't have to look pretty or be structural, so I don't worry about it too often. I'm good. How are you, Tommy? We're at a welding or a homesteading expo event in Mcallister, and I'm doing some welding demonstration. Not a lot of people here right now, so I'm actually doing a personal project that I need to get caught up. So somebody chooses to come in here, I'll finish tacking this up so I can move it. But the idea is to get people in here to weld for the first time, or if they don't have much experience, letting them freshen back up so they feel comfortable going out and getting their own welder. Now, if you really wanted to be perfect, you'd grind the mill scale and the grease off of it, but this gate will last at least 4 to 5 times longer than your tractor supply gates and stuff like that. So it'll be a good gate. It's not all that necessary unless you're something like you're doing a machinery repair, implement repair, where there's going to be a lot of stress. Then prep is super. I like to work to the opposite corner. To me, it squares up the best if you go opposite corners. I forgot that one. It was grounding for this. I didn't move my ground to this side of the workpiece, but this was touching, so it tacked it together. Yeah, he needs to get out of the house. I think he sits in his house too much, Tommy. Let me take y'all out here and show you. Oh, Shayla's not attending her booth right now. Show y'all what Shayla's got going on. She's got some free choice mineral starter kits. You could use it on just about any livestock you want, but goat and sheep's kind of the key area. A lot of people use free choice on their cattle too. And there's my banner for the farm welding basics. And the boys are running themselves a little snack booth. It'd be the cheapest place you can get a snack out here, I promise you that. Y'all sold anything? I'm about to steal one.
No.
So, there's some critters a farm's got out here. Oh, supernatural. I've watched these guys before. They're the ones that are trying to make longhorn beef popular to eat. I've seen that bull before. They've been working on their genetics for good longhorn beef. I mean, not all longhorn makes good longhorn beef, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to remember where I've seen them at. Seen them on YouTube doing an interview or something. Yeah. You guys should check them out. Washington, Oklahoma. Yeah, I've seen them before somewhere. I can't exactly put a finger on it. Actually, I know how I found them. Was I was YouTubing Longhorn beef. I was trying to find some people actually showing you how well a Longhorn performed, like the marbling in the steak and stuff like that. I'm sure you guys can hear that skid steer running in here. But I was trying to find a video on Longhorn beef and how well you could actually finish it, because everybody just says Longhorn beef is lean and it's no good, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like it's just a bias, from people who are Angus ranchers who really want to bolster their breed's reputation, or whatever breed it is that they're raising. I don't know why they're running that. I don't know why they're running the skid steer in here, but I feel like that's really why Longhorn gets a bad rap. We did process one Longhorn. Well, he looked Longhorn to me. It had his horns removed, and just the colorings and everything looked like Longhorn, and he was pretty good. We grain finished him. I would say though, we had a Guernsey milk steer, something of the sorts, and I would say that one finished a little bit better than Longhorn, but overall Longhorn was still pretty good. Part of it is just cooking your steak right and not overcooking it. But anyways, I'm gonna get back to tacking this frame up so you can see some progression on it. I realize this welder's like right in the way. Let's see. I don't know if that's gonna help you. I mean, at times I'll be in and out of the frame. This is actually kind of nice. I needed to get these gates done. It's slow in here right now. But if you're in the area, swing on by. You might get a little extra time in the booth. There's somebody up there. I'm gonna go talk. Sorry about that. Probably lost everybody. No, I got 18 people in here. All right, we're going to get back to doing a little bit of welding. Double tap the screen and it will like this video. I don't know why my sound bar is up on it. Oh, I must be hitting it with the phone's clamping it. Alright, if you double tap the screen, it will like this video and get it out there in the algorithms. Had some people over there interested in the welding booth, and he said he's going to swing back by later and get a waiver signed and get in here and do some welding. But let me get this thing tacked up a little more solid, flip it over, and get a little more done. Here's a little tip for whenever you're welding up gates in tubing. Leave a drain hole. Don't ever actually try to seal your tubing up 100%, because what you'll end up doing is having a pipe bust due to condensation. Rain will get in there no matter what, condensation will get in there, and you'll end up popping a tube. So always leave a way for your water to get out. That's my big goods list right there. I am doing welding demonstrations at a homesteading expo. Right now, the attendees are a little slow. It's Friday. Not a lot of people here right now. So I'm working on basically a livestock gate or entryway gate for a property I'm building fence on. It's going to be a goat and sheep 4x4 goat and sheep panel welded into it, 1.5 inch square tubing, 2 10-foot gates. So that's what I'm working on right now. Oops, I burned through that one a little bit. That's why I like welding over woodworking, because if I mess up on wood, I can't really put it back. If I blow a hole in this, I just kind of fill it back in. I stepped on my MIG torch earlier. Now every now and then when I hit the trigger, it don't want to go. That's unfortunate, but I do have another one here. But I'm not sure the other one's working right, because I was going to set up a flux core welder, and it'll only weld for 3 seconds and times out because it's not seeing that it's actually arcing. So not really sure. May have to run to Harbor Freight and get a MIG torch here in a little bit if I have to switch the other one and it don't work. So if I wasn't welding a goat and sheep panel in here, I'd really consider go with like an 11 gauge tubing. But since I put this goat and sheep panel in here, this stuff really makes it more rigid. You just got to be careful not to weld too hot when you're welding that panel on with this lighter gauge tubing, because what you'll get is you'll get a bow in your gate. So you want to kind of bounce around and weld in different areas and just not burn real long welds, just little 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch little welds. Not the best looking one I've ever had. MIG gun's really giving me hand. Probably I'll try to switch it before somebody comes in here and tries to weld. Said double tap that screen and it will like the video on these verticals. Alright, so now I made that gate a little over 4.5 foot tall. So now I need to come down right up here somewhere about 6 inches from the bottom of that tubing down and put a lateral piece to weld the top of the panel into, and then I'll put a couple of vertical pieces in there after that, and then we'll be ready to put the panel in, start tacking it in. Yeah, I'll say that. All right, 11:22. I wasn't born yesterday. Let's see. There we go. Got that guy in timeout. tape measure's starting to not work. Alright, so that panel, I'm going to go measure it. Always measure it. I've had those panels say they're 4 foot and they'll be 3 foot and 11 inches, so, or they'll be bigger. Depends on where you get them from. I think some of them come from China or something. But essentially, I'm going to put a lateral piece right here, or I think I measured down here. But anyways, you get the point. A lateral piece across here, and on that piece, you want to be able to weld that panel onto it and at the bottom of the gate, so you don't want to make it exactly the measurement of the panel height, because then you'll be fighting trying to keep it on the tubing to get it welded on there, and you'll barely have enough room to do so. So I'm going to add 1.25 inches, and that way I should be able to land more or less in the middle of each tubing for my welds. That way I'm not fighting it, trying to weld it on the edge, if that makes any sense. Alright, so basically exactly 4 inches, 4 foot. Then I'm just gonna verify my measurements before I actually start welding anything in. And that's actually why I verified, because I should have subtracted an inch, not added. It's a good thing I didn't start welding. It still would have worked, but it would have been the struggle that I was talking about. Alright. Trust me, you want to measure 4 or 5 times if you're actually building a product. And then also I'm going to write those measurements down so I can build the other gate the same. Their wall here, just chocolate them off. It'll come off. There we go. I might have found the sweet spot on the welder. Hello, Wendy. Down here at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, doing a welding demonstration. Wasn't a lot of people coming in as of yet. Kind of early weekday, but I figured I'd work on a project that I need to get done since I barely found the time to get down here anyway. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just building a gate. It's better to build your own gates than it is to buy them from the store. Unless you're going to go to a custom fab shop, buy a heavy duty gate, you're going to buy them every few years if you actually use that gate. Yeah, talk about sleep. We were staying at the Comfort Inn or whatever it is right off the highway down here in Muskogee last night. Man, I am not used to having trucks drive by all night long. Yeah, I hear you, Wendy. We've got so much to do. We're so behind. Winter's coming. It was insane just trying to get here yesterday. We made it though. Almost destroyed my booth. I'm actually picking up a bow in this part because I cut this one just a hair short, so what it does is it contracts that, draws it together. So what I'll do is when I weld the panel on, when I weld that panel, it should bow it the opposite direction. Yeah, actually, this one wasn't too bad. It was like $140 for 2 nights. Pretty crappy little hotel, but it was probably the cheapest option we could find. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows what it'll do, man. This year was insane with rain. You know, it's kind of glad to have it, but at the same time, there for about a month, it was like so surplus it couldn't actually do any benefit. You know, but you hate to complain if you don't have it. You know what I mean? But I've been meaning to open some persimmon seeds and see if it's a spoon or a fork. Alright, we've got a participant wanting to weld, so I gotta pick the project up for a second. What am I gonna do with it? So you don't have to put it down. Explain everything. The main thing is like if you wanted to get a machine for yourself at your house to practice with a little MIG machine to do art, repairs, or whatever you wanted to do, you can do it with a $250 machine. But you have two options. You see I got a gas bottle on this one. Basically what that does is it's shielding impurities from getting into the pool of metal whenever it's melting, and it keeps the weld clean. And without that gas, it will pop, be real porous, and won't be very structurally sound, won't look good. But you have another option where you can, if you don't have a bottle, you don't have all that set up, you can run flux core wire. What you really have to pay attention to then, though, is your contact tip to workpiece, because your polarity will be switched. It will actually draw your gun in and stick to your workpiece. You don't have that problem as much with the gas shielded because your polarities is straight polarity, positive, negative, negative. So it doesn't really draw together. Does that make sense? That's your entry level MIG crash course right there. You got plugs and you got solid core gas shielded. This is gas shielded. So when it comes to gas shielded, you can. I'm not going to weld yet. You want to keep a little bit of a stick out, about like that. Stick out is how far the wire sticks out. But you don't want to stick out too far because it'll get kind of a cold arc and your wire will just kind of start melting but not arcing, and then you get stuff stuck in the tip, stuff will fall in the weld. So you want to keep it relatively short, about maybe even a little shorter than that. I'm not going to weld yet, but you can either push it, whichever feels better to you, or you can drag it. And you don't want to go too fast, or you're just going to get a real stream. But you don't want to go too slow, because then you're going to get this high, wormy, big built-up weld. On this piece, you're probably going to want to go. I'm not going to weld that. But so on this one, you're going to want to go about like this, and kind of make little zigzags. You don't have to make zigzags, but imagine you got two pieces of metal. Imagine this is two pieces of metal like this, and you want to put weld on both sides. It's like you're stitching it together. So yeah, imagine, here I'll actually draw a line. You'll be able to see the line. So here in a minute I'll show you one. Alright, so imagine you're stitching two pieces of metal. You want to do it with contact on both sides. Does that make sense? And you'll actually, when you start welding, that'll dim down. Everything will get dark, but it'll be so bright right here that you can actually see it. I prefer dragging, but you can push. If it's flux core, you want to drag. If it's stick welding, you want to drag. But if you're MIG welding, you can push it. I'm going to run the top bead, and then, and sometimes if wire don't start coming out immediately, my gun's a little messed up right now, you may have to like let it turn that. But I'm gonna weld the bead real quick on the top, and then I'll let you try on this one. And my machine's way down there. Turn it up, please, so it's more better. And this one's got a digital. This one's got a digital readout, so it's kind of self-explanatory how you set it up. Some of them have dials, and you'll have a chart. You just kind of reference the chart, whatever you think this is. set all your valves. Good. I'm going to turn it up just one more. That's pulling. Now I'm gonna push towards it. Alright, not the prettiest weld, but kind of get the concept. That was dragging it, and then that was pushing it. Kind of hard to see. You want to try it? Yeah, this thing. So these will make it where these will make it where the swivel down is easy. This. But you kind of want it loose. I mean, this part loose. I don't want you to drop it down without grabbing it.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to see it happen.
Right. So, I'll turn it over to you. Like I said, you're going to want to keep it about this far away. And it'll just do the wire feeding. I'm going to go ahead and rip it off pretty short. That way you get trouble. You notice whenever I started, it wasn't coming out, and then whenever it did, I had started it and let go. I had that big old stick out. Whenever it started melting, all that wire melted and fell down there. That's all that popping was at first. So, yeah, if you want to make a dry run real quick before pulling the trigger. Now don't get scared if it starts popping. Just stick it out until it. If it starts to pop, 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 just kind of hold it there until it steadies out, and then start going. Looks pretty good. Maybe let me put that on. Maybe a little bit steeper. Hold your got a little steeper. Yep, just like that. Yep. It ain't gonna get good. Pretty good for a first beat. So you started out a little slow, and then you actually went a little bit fast, and then you just started to kind of steady out. See how it's kind of fast, and then it gets skinny. You go a little slow, then a little fast, and then you start to kind of get into the groove right there at the end. You can run a beat as far as you want across. Did you see that line at all? And you can go wider. You can move it just a little wider. You don't have to. There's no science to it. I mean, sometimes, when I really have to cover ground, I'll make the weld half an inch wider. So, too slow right here. Really, almost fast. Too fast, but really, what I would say is maybe that same speed going in this direction, but let's go just a little right. And so you're kind of moving the whole gun like this. If you actually kind of oscillate the gun instead of just moving it like this, so you're actually kind of when you're welding, you're actually kind of moving it. You're kind of rolling rather than pushing it. You know what I mean? So it becomes. Try resting, like put this hand down. Not really grabbing it as much as just use this hand to move it, and this hand just to kind of steady it. You know what I mean? Notice how towards the end it starts snapping. This fish stick out, got a little too far out, so your wire just kind of starts melting out. So that's just really the only way to fix that is what you did is you just kind of worked yourself out of position. You kind of got so close to yourself that you started picking the gun up instead of continue to drag it. So, like if you were going to plan, like let's say there were a well right here, and you needed to work the whole wheel. If you were going to plan to do it, what you want to do is kind of do a little dry run and make sure you can get the entire thing to the road. So, like let's say you're up here and then you got up here, your angle started to when you do your dry run, you go, okay, so I can't naturally do this, so then you just need to change your position, like your body position in relation to you know what I mean? Like the dry run is probably trying to get it to look pretty and do it once, and not have to drag it back out. Getting your position right, making sure that you can. And if like when you do tank classes, they let you run cutting torches. Then like the oxy-assembly cutting torch or even the plasma torch, it gets even more because like let's say you're trying to cut this plate out. See, this is right down my CNC machine. Like, let's say you needed to cut this plate out to shim something, and you need these holes to be exact. Well, if you get over here and you're in position where to cut these, then you go back up here and you have a hard time and you get out this hole out. Because you know what I mean? When running cutting torches, it gets way comfortability is really all it is. Making sure you stay comfortable. You want to run a couple more up here? Actually, try to run one. I can get this speed right here. Like we do. You know what I mean? pushing that one? You just did it. What you were doing right there was pushing.
Okay. So,
Yeah. If you push it, it's awesome. Same tip angle and everything, contact distance. Just basically, it's kind of preference. I like pushing it. I don't know, it's just more natural to me. Well, I've done a lot of stick welding. So I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, you kept going, but you were on top of the wheel, so you didn't get much contact out there. I mean, it wasn't a bad beat. Like, you know, it's just really short. If you would have kept that up all the way down here, it would have been pretty good. Try to work it long term. Imagine this is like a try to work it up on the wall. You know what I'm saying? So a little bit, you're working your bead instead of like this and all that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're trying to get down pound. Not bad. Just your first time welding? It's not bad. I mean, I can't remember which one was mine. I think it's these two. It's not that great. I wouldn't. I mean, if I'm like really, let me really try it. I wouldn't. Fast. It's a little, I could have went faster. welding is kind of a patience thing, but then also you got to know when to go a little faster. But I mean, it's not bad. You know, some people get in here and pick up the machine, and they're too nervous. Like that very first time when you did it, you kind of got started. Some people can't ever get over that. So really, all it is like once you get in that class, you're going to have an hour, however long it is. And if it's anything like that class, remember I was in there. When you first start welding, they're going to give you a few pieces of steel. They're probably going to start you out with stick. All right, run beads over this one. You're going to fill it with a big piece of plate. Quarter this side. You're going to run bead like this. And you're just going to snap them all the way down. And then you're going to plug it off, plug it all off, and you're going to go get it. Hopefully they have you use sticks. Sticks kind of the fundamental. I choose to show big because it's a little easier. Sticks a little more challenging in its own way because you have to strike the line. But once you learn how to strike the line, it's not. I should have brought, this machine will do stick, but I don't have the patch ones. Just like that. Hopefully next time we do one of these, I'll have a stick machine too. What do you think? Is it?
This is a lot funner than what I expected.
Yeah. Yeah. Welding can be real rewarding, especially like once you kind of figure out what you want to do. Let's just say it was for nothing more than art. But you start out with a bunch of raw materials and you end up with a finished product. You know. Like right now I'm just working on a gate. I appreciate you swinging in and giving it a shot. Yep, no problem. All right, 2 hours in, that was our first person to try their hand at welding. I got another guy talking to the wife out there, so I'm gonna go see if he wants to weld. Get me a drink of water. Alright, sorry about that. I had a guy stop in and just ask me about my welding, and a lot of people want to know about my welding career, which I don't really have one. You know, they kind of want to know what I do. I'm not really a career welder. I've welded for work, but not anything technically the profession of welding. I got a little dice kit Shell bought for people to potentially purchase and practice welding on. It's pretty thin stuff and it's stainless. So I'm gonna try to put one together. Have to turn the welder way down for this one. Work every time now. That's not pretty. Turn this thing down a little bit. Woo, that's ugly. We may have to grind that corner. Oh, that one was pretty good up until I got to it. Should have ground my weld down a little bit better. Almost on the corner. Have my machine up a little high on the first wheel. too hot. Multiple passes on that same side. I wasn't flipping it evenly. I really screwed up my first pass, almost first two passes. But if I was to redo it, it'd be a good one. I might have to switch my big gun and see if I can get better results. A little bit better, but the stupid MIG gun keeps cutting out, so I'm gonna steal the MIG gun off this other one, but like I'm not sure that it's running right either, because the other MIG gun cuts out after 3 seconds because it believes that no arc was detected. I may be going to get me a new MIG gun. I'm going to end this live for now. If you was watching, I appreciate it.